Bruh, you have 3 days, 3 full days to get on underdog and take half a yard for Lamar Jackson. Literally, if he throws for 1 yard on Thursday Night Football against the Bengals, you are a winner on Underdog Fantasy. You get this free square by downloading the app and using our code BDGE when you deposit on there, all right? $10 or more. Code BDGE will get you the free square. It'll get you a deposit bonus, and it'll get you access to our waiver wire rankings, which we're about to get into, all right? The Big Dog membership available on BDGE.co. The cheapest, the easiest way to get it for free for the remainder of the season is by going to UnderdogFantasy.com or downloading the app and using code BDGE. Let's get into the Week 10 waiver wire, and it is a grotesque waiver wire. There's not much to yap about. There are a lot of players that have been on this waiver wire list probably 3 or 4 times already this season. There are no major injuries. The trade deadline is happening right now. I will talk about Khalil Herbert going to the Cincinnati Bengals, but we are jumping to the most added players and the most dropped players, let you know who I think we should be spending on, who I think you should be keeping on your roster, and or dropping them going forward. All right, so let's start off on the right side of this list. We've got Quentin Johnston, who had big game, career day, 4 for, I think, 118 and a touchdown. Most of that wasn't thanks to a bunch of broken coverage by Cleveland. But the fact of the matter is this: Justin Herbert's healthier. Quentin Johnston's finally healthy. This team is passing the ball a lot more. That was his first game going over 100 yards in his NFL career. So I think it's less about like trying to nitpick whether or not it was broken coverage or whether or not this and that and the other thing. The routes are going up for him, and you're attaching him to Justin Herbert, who is starting to get into his zone. They are allowing him to throw the ball more, which I think makes Quentin Johnston one of, if not the top waiver wire pickup of the week at the wide receiver position. So he tops the list, and I wouldn't really overthink that one. He is a flex-worthy play probably for the remainder of the season. Ladd is, making things difficult over the middle of the field for defenders. So Quentin Johnston helps spread things out. And he's clearly improved. He's looking a lot better than he did his rookie year. So he's someone with upside week to week going forward. Then we have Demarcus Robinson, again, the Jerry Rice of wide receiver threes, the absolute woat when he needs to be the wide receiver one. Luckily for him, we have Puka and Cooper Kupp back. All right. And another week, probably healthier, which means another week of this offense getting better and better and better. Stafford is looking good. Demarcus Robinson has 4 touchdowns over his last 2 games, and it's clear that Stafford trusts Robinson down the field. Now, this is back-to-back years that we've seen like legendary month-long runs for Demarcus Robinson. Remember last year down the stretch, he had 4 touchdowns in 4 games. Now he has 4 touchdowns in 2 games. He's becoming a part of this passing offense. Now, he's obviously going to be super volatile, super boomer bust because of the just insane target share that Puka and Cooper Kupp demand, and then the number of carries that Kyron Williams gets on a daily basis. So there are going to be games where Demarcus Robinson gets 2 targets, and if he doesn't convert a big play, he's going to put a 0 in for you. So I am not, spending too much on Demarcus Robinson. Quentin Johnston's a dude that I would probably drop somewhere between, 8, 10, 15-ish, maybe even more than that percentage fab if you need him in your lineup. If you have an absolute fucking cone team like I do with T. Higgins and A.J. Brown and all these guys hurt that can't fucking stay on the field, then Quentin Johnston is a dude that you should be targeting on the waiver wire because he's someone that can fill in and hit hypothetical upside of these dudes. Demarcus Robinson, same boat. I think he's probably a little bit more volatile. Now, the moment y'all have definitely not been waiting for, but we need to talk about. Khalil Herbert just got moved to the Cincinnati Bengals. This comes on the back of the news that Zach Moss is going to be placed on the IR, and he's going to miss the remainder of the regular season with that neck injury. Khalil Herbert has been just buried in the dungeon of Chicago behind DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnston. What does this mean for Khalil Herbert? Herbert's been an extremely underrated runner. He's been a very, very good runner since entering the league. What he does not do well is catch passes. He's also not like a phenomenal pass blocker by any means. And I think those are the 2 things that kept Zach Moss on the field in Cincinnati this year. Chase Brown has been phenomenal the last few weeks. It's obviously his RB1 role to lose. It's also going to take Herbert probably a week, 2, 3 to get up to speed in this offense, if he even has any sort of like real role. So with Herbert, it's a speculative ad. I think by the time he's really up to speed and maybe playing like 20, 30% of the snaps, like are the regular season of fantasy is almost done at this point. So Herbert is definitely not a dude I'm getting overly excited about. I like him a lot as a player, and I wish he got some more run in Chicago, and I hope he gets some run in Cincinnati. But at this point, like Chase Brown's looks so good that why take the ball out of his hands? Obviously, they're going to want to share the load a little bit, but I don't think, like, the only reason Zach Moss was even playable was because he was catching 3, 4, 5 dump offs a game, and that's just not Khalil Herbert's game. So I don't think his role really translates that well to what Zach Moss was doing. I get it in theory. It's just like get good players on the team so that we can spell Chase Brown, but I think that's probably all that's going to happen here. As we move down the list, we've got Mike Gesicki, another really popular waiver wire ad. Now, Gesicki has basically played the slot role for the Bengals while T. Higgins is out because it forces Jamar Chase to play on the outside, where when T. Higgins is in, Jamar Chase can move inside a lot more, meaning that he's kind of the slot receiver. Mike Gesicki takes a back seat. Now, we've seen blow-up game after blow-up game as T. Higgins remains out. He did not practice on Monday. They have a short week against Baltimore on Thursday, which is fucking devastating because he went crazy against Baltimore earlier on in the season. He's going to probably try to play because it's a division matchup and it's a really big game. But, if you're not practicing, the dude hasn't practiced in like 2.5 weeks, probably not just going to play out of nowhere. So today's practice report will be very telling. If he is another DMP, I'd be really surprised if Higgins goes. If that's the case, then Mike Gesicki gets a really good matchup in a 53-point over-under right now. I couldn't believe that, but if you look at what happened last game, it makes a little bit of sense. And Gesicki's also no longer competing with the talented rookie Eric All, who tore his ACL. Now, they'll still probably have guys like Tanner Hudson and whoever the fuck the other guys, the tight ends are that just randomly pop up on the stat sheet every now and then. But Gesicki becomes a legitimate target in the Cincinnati offense. I think there's also the contingent long-term upside with Gesicki if T. Higgins were to get traded at the deadline. I don't know if it happens. It makes sense if Cincinnati is not going to re-sign him this upcoming offseason, then right now would be the play to move him. If you know you're not re-signing him, why not try to get something for him right now? Why not get a third? Something like that, a day 2 pick if they can, and move him before the trade deadline. And obviously, if that happens, you have some upside with Gesicki long-term for the rest of the season. You could take speculative shots on Andre Yoshivas. You could take speculative shots on Pajama Jermaine Burton over there, PJ Jermaine, and kind of see what happens there. So just throwing that idea out there. We have Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who brought up a couple weeks in a row. He has now scored a touchdown in 4 straight games. And the more important fact of the matter is this. We're seeing the targets rise every game, the receptions rise, but the snaps going up and up and up and up since D-Hop has left the team, right? This was where D-Hop left, 47% of snaps. D-Hop leaves, 92, 97. So he is a very large part of this offense right now. The games coming up are very tough. Chargers, Minnesota, Houston, but down the stretch, Washington, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Jacksonville. Like, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is fine. 6'2", 211's got good size, and they need to throw the ball somewhere in that offense. I think Will Levis will probably get another shot in this offense as the QB, so that doesn't make me feel good about their pass catchers there. But, again, the matchups are really good, and he's running every single route, so I guess you can kind of do worse in a flex spot if you really need it. Cooper Rush, I'm not really interested in, even in super flex leagues, given the fact that CeeDee Lamb is probably missing time as well. I believe Dak, if I remember correctly, the last report I saw was Dak is probably going to hit the IR. Taysom Hill was a dude that we highlighted last week, and we told you guys should be picking up a tight end because the Saints were so banged up. He got targets, receptions, carries, scored a touchdown last week, so we nailed that one. If he's still available, I think he's a really good pickup again versus Atlanta because now Chris Olave is out. So Taysom Hill should be really, really, really involved in this one. Cam Akers has now taken over the role as the backup for Aaron Jones. He has supplanted Ty Chandler. He is the only one getting running back carries behind Aaron Jones. I still think if Aaron Jones were to go down, it would end up being a committee, and Cam Akers just isn't a good running back. So whatever. Palmer Jarrett, I got no interest. Johnny Smith, same shit, different week. Sterling Shepard, same with him. Jawan Jennings, 60% owned. That's unserious. Hunter Henry, I don't understand how he's still 38% owned. Since Drake May has taken over as a starting quarterback in week 6, the worst PPR game that Hunter Henry has put up is 9.5 points. It's been like 13.5, 17.5, 9.5, 12.5. He is the tight end 6 in that time span, and it's all coincided with Drake May under center. So Hunter Henry is like a locked and loaded tight end 6 to 10 pretty much every single week as long as Drake May is under center. So he needs to be way more highly owned than 38% here. Sutton, that's a joke. Boswell, Otten, joke. How is everyone on this list being added so heavily? Darnell Mooney, Jordan Addison, what the hell? Let's talk about Ray McCloud a little bit. So Drake London's dealing with a hip pointer injury, and it's more of a pain tolerance thing, but there is a chance that he misses this upcoming matchup, which would mean Ray McCloud would probably get a little bit more work. It feels weird. I don't know. I kind of feel like this passing offense would just have so little success, and Bijan and Algier might just get 35 to 40 touches overall, because running an offense through Darnell Mooney and Ray McCloud as your top pass catchers feels like it's just not a plan that's going to work. That being said, though, the Saints are obviously without Paulson Adebo already. He's on their IR. Last week, Marshawn Lattimore and Kool-Aid McKinstry both missed. So if they miss again, you're talking about you're without your top 3 cornerbacks in that secondary, which is problematic, and Kirk Cousins has been fucking lighting shit up right now. So Ray, I think you could definitely do worse at flex, but I ultimately think it's going to be just meaning that it's like a stagnant pass catching group for the Falcons overall. Jalen Tolbert, I think it's interesting with CeeDee Lamb on the IR, but then again, or CeeDee Lamb probably out this week, maybe multiple weeks, but Dak Prescott's also out. So like, what is this passing offense? This whole overall offense might just be an absolute, bottom 3 team in the NFL at this point because their defense sucks. No Dak, maybe no CD. Their running game is atrocious. So like what? It's almost like investing into a Panthers wide receiver, to be honest with you. So speaking on that, I think Xavier Legette, he's probably not on this list, but he is relatively unowned, and I think he would be my top waiver wire pickup of the week, maybe tied with Quentin Johnston, a dude that I would put 10 to 20% on. He has now scored, I think, 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games, and he's been like a fingertip away from some massive games over the last couple of weeks. He got banged up, but entered the game or re-entered the game last week. The week prior, Bryce Young just overthrew him barely on like a 70-yard touchdown. He was wide the fuck open. And then this week, he had like another 35-yard catch that the cornerback just made an insane play and ripped the ball out of his hand to pick it off. But again, he's been a few inches away from a bunch of big plays. You have Jonathan Mingo, who was just traded to the Cowboys. No, we're absolutely not using a roster spot, even in a 20-team league on him. You have Deontay Johnson out of there. Adam Thielen could get moved today as well. So Legette just might be in. I mean, I hope they start Andy Dalton. I don't know if they're going to do that in Germany this week, but if they do, it would be a major upgrade to the passing offense and a great matchup versus the Giants. So Xavier Legette is available. I think he is absolutely a top priority waiver wire pickup for the week. Audric Estime, I think, is worth stashing. He's getting a little bit more work. He's looked pretty good. Sean Payton said he was going to get a little more work going forward. I just don't know if I believe him at all. The San Francisco 49ers wide receiver group. I mean, we could talk about the whole offense right now. Week 10, apparently C-Mac should be back. Apparently Juwan Jennings should be back. Ricky Pearsall started to get a little bit of momentum prior to the bye. They're coming off the bye. Jordan Mason banged up his shoulder again, which opened the door for Isaac Guerrero. There's so many moving parts here. We don't know who's playing. We don't know who's not playing. If C-Mac and Jordan Mason both miss, Isaac Guerrero, I think, is a baller. Just start RB2, plug and play. You're going to feel great about having him into your lineup. If one of those other dudes plays, I don't feel good about Guerrero really at all. I think it's just going to be a committee that's going to be really hard to predict. With Pearsall, he is a stash that if Juwan Jennings is playing, you can't start Ricky Pearsall at all. He's someone I want to hold on to because one of two things. We don't know if Juwan Jennings is playing. We're assuming he is, but we don't know. If he does play, there's a chance that Shanahan wants to just ride the momentum of Ricky Pearsall and invest into their first-round pick and, just build on the performances that he's kind of been stacking up the last couple of weeks. Not that they were like, over the top, over the moon or whatever, but obviously there were some bright spots and some positivity there that maybe they just want to move from the vet Juwan to Ricky Pearsall and continue to build on top of that momentum a little bit. I do think that Shanahan probably likes the guys that he trusts, and Juwan Jennings feels like that guy. So Pearsall is a no-go this week if Juwan Jennings plays, but I still think you should hold on to him, and he wouldn't be a dude I'm dropping. There's no one else really unowned on this list that I think is worth looking at. Everybody knows the handcuff, the high upside, backup handcuffs that you need to be owning, whether it's Blake Corum or even Trey Benson now and Braylon Allen and those types of guys and Ray Davis, etc. So like those guys are available. That's where you want to start stashing your bench with. We can run through the quarterbacks really quickly. The guys that are less than 50% owned. Daniel Jones has been getting it done with his legs, but I kind of want no part of this Germany game. The international games are usually a fuck fest, and it's a 41-point total. I just think this game's going to end up being like 16-10. I don't really want any part of that. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are kind of clicking on offense right now. I think he's super startable as like a top 15 streamer against Arizona this week in that weak secondary. Bo Nix, he's been great for fantasy and was like a few inches away from another really big game last week, but at Kansas City, I'm staying away from it. Russ, I think, is extremely streamable, though, at Washington. This is a team that's been playing really well under Russ, and he was like a few touchdown catches from George Pickens away from having another really good fantasy game. This is a Washington offense that's going to force them to throw the ball a lot, so I like Russ this week as a streamer for show. And then in terms of streaming defenses, I mean, if Detroit is available for you, I like that. We'll have to see if Nico Collins is available. That would obviously be a big hit to them. The Giants, I believe, are 5-point favorites at in Germany against Carolina. So I think the Giants are very streamable. They've been getting a ton of pressure on the quarterback, so they get a lot of sacks there. Yeah, that's really all we got for that shit, though. Let's move on to the drop list on the right side of things. And again, if you're enjoying the video so far, you find it helpful. I don't even know at this point. I hate fantasy so much. I don't even know if what I'm saying helps any of you guys out at this point. So hit the thumbs up button if you do enjoy the video up to this point. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll have our running back preview video tomorrow, as well as the wide receiver video for week 10. But as always, the best way to support the brand is by downloading the Underdog Fantasy app using code BDGE. When you deposit $10 or more, again, you'll get that free square. You will get access to the Big Dog membership for the rest of the season, and you will get a deposit bonus when you use our code BDGE, depositing for the first time on Underdog. All right, players. Dak is definitely droppable in one QB league. Zach Ertz, it's just the same shit every single week. We keep repeating it over and over again. Cole Kmet, I would hold on to. Dalvin Cook, I'm fine dropping because that offense is going to stagnate. Julius Chestnut, of course, is fine dropping, given Tony Pollard is fine. Oh, Parker Washington's the other dude that I actually want to talk about. That's on the drop list, but not on the ad list for whatever reason. Now, Parker Washington did not necessarily have a huge day for Jacksonville, but he ran a shitload of routes. This was the first week that we did not have Christian Kirk in, and Parker Washington became an 85% player, 6 targets in this one. Interestingly enough, he saw 21% of the targets, so it was a good target share. He played a lot of routes. His ADOT was crazy. It was above 17. He had an ADOT of 17.2, which I was kind of taken aback by because I'm like, he's a slot wide receiver. He didn't play the slot really at all. They had this other dude, what's his fucking name? Like Austin, some dude I've never heard of, was playing the slot role. Now, it was because I think Gabe Davis missed this game. Now, if Gabe Davis is playing next week, which I kind of hope he is for Parker Washington's sake, that should move Parker Washington back into the slot and probably mean better things for him. So he's running a lot of routes. He's going to play that role while Christian Kirk is now gone for the remainder of the season. 21% target share. I like Parker Washington, so I think he's actually one of the better under-the-radar players on the waiver wire this week that might still be available to you guys. Devin Singletary, we're definitely not dropping. He's one of those handcuffs you hold on to. Romeo Doubs, I'm holding through the bye. Sean Tucker is definitely droppable between Rashad White and Bucky Irvin, both playing well. All of the Houston wide receivers are for sure droppable outside of Tank and Nico. Tank Bigsby, I'm definitely holding on to. Xavier Worthy is just a cone bot, but you're also holding on to him because, again, he was a play away from having a big day last night. Keon Coleman, we need to see the extent of the injury before we make any moves on him, but I would definitely hold on to him. Dearness Johnston is now back to being pretty much irrelevant with Travis Etienne back, so he is droppable. Trey Palmer is droppable. Madison, I would still hold on to. I still think he has workhorse days ahead of him, even though they are probably not going to be efficient. I still think, in pinches, we still have some big bye weeks coming up. Like this is, we have a couple teams on bye this week. We might have like 4 teams on bye this week. We have a huge bye week in week 12 and then some more teams in week 14. So there are going to be times where you're going to need a player like Alexander Madison to throw into your lineup. I'm assuming Xavier Hutch, you can definitely drop. Tutu, I think, is droppable. Michael Wilson, he's been like okay more often than not. It's just very hard to predict when the good games are coming. So I'm fine if you want to drop him. Raheem Jarrett, you could drop. Sterling Shepard, I would hold on to him. He was pretty heavily involved last night, and if Jalen McMillan misses more time, he'll probably continue to be targeted in that offense. Elijah Moore, if you can't hold on to him through the bye, I'm fine dropping. Jordan Mason, we're definitely holding on to in case C-Mac continues to miss time. Zeke, obviously droppable. Clyde, obviously droppable. Sanders, droppable. Tolbert would definitely hold on to. Parkinson is droppable. Roshan, I would hold on to. He's one of those high-end handcuffs where Khalil Herbert is now gone, so if DeAndre Swift gets hurt, they don't really have another running back on that roster to turn to. Roshan should be a 20-touch-per-game guy and could be like a league winner down the stretch if DeAndre Swift gets hurt. Other than that, though, Wicks, I think he's droppable if you need to make room on your roster through the bye. I don't think he's like a must-hold player. Obviously, same with Trey Tucker. All right, that's all we got for you for the Week 10 waiver wire. And again, I'll be back tomorrow, so subscribe to the channel if you are new, and that's it. So, smoke cheese.